Hello, everybody. It is Mike Levin on Monday, February 16th, 2021. And when last we left off, I had shown you how to use Linux Vim in order to edit files on the Windows side. And I showed you how to do that in order to edit this file in this incredibly long path that lets you set the preferences of this very Windows terminal that I'm looking at. So this brings up the JSON. And this is the same trick that's being done in VSCode when you have VSCode on your machine. But I want to make editing these settings with Linux Vim easy, like it is with VSCode. So the first thing I have to do is eliminate having to type this really, really long command there. You can see how long that is you need to type. So I'll pick up just the command itself, which starts from here over to here. Pick it up with the right mouse click or the click on the right side of your touchpad. And you'll recall the place where I made Hello World show is a special place in Linux in your home directory. You might think we're in the home directory, but no, Windows defaults you to where you can share files between your Windows home directory and Linux very easily. What you really want is your Linux home directory, // and you'll see this prompt here changes. You are no longer in this location. It chopped it off. And you can tell that by typing pwd, and you can see your current working directory is actually different. This was your current working directory. This is now your current working directory. This word Ubuntu is actually the name of the Ubuntu user that I set up when I made this Windows subsystem for Linux virtual machine. I chose username Ubuntu. And if I were to just ls, it looked like nothing was there except that foo file that I made not too long ago. I'm going to remove foo. Oh, it's a directory. Yeah, I was demonstrating how to make a GitHub repo or a Git repo. Not quite GitHub yet, but a Git repo. And so I'm going to remove recursive and forced foo. We don't need that there right now. Clear ls. And you can see my home directory appears empty, but if I do ls list all la, ls-la, you can see there's actually a fair amount in there, including this file I had created, which is where you're going to see the hello world. So if I do vim bash, and it's dot because it's invisible. Those dots at the beginning are what make these files invisible when you do a normal ls. You have to do ls-la to see files that have a period at the beginning of their file name. So that's where that hello world is coming from. Now what I want to put in there is something that probably is not in my copy buffer anymore. I'll put it back there. It's this guy here. This is going to go into my bash profile. I'll just retype it. And I'm going to make an alias. The word will be settings. So whenever I type settings in a terminal, in an Ubuntu, in this Linux system's terminal, it will execute this. So, since it's in bash profile, it doesn't take effect until I close out and go back in. Bam! So I have a real easy way now to edit the contents of my settings.json that controls all the look and feel of Windows Terminal. The main thing I got to do now is make this font bigger. That's unusably small. And so I saved a few of my favorite things I do. I'll start with the font size stuff, which actually goes into a profile. And you'll see there's some interesting things here, like I'm changing the pointer, which is a beam, a lot like here in Windows, to a green cursor box that I like to use. That's what this is here, the color. So anyway, these three things are going to go in on my profile, not global, but profile. So we go over here, we type settings, we look for our profiles, and these are them. These are the profiles. You can see that this one here is for PowerShell. My default one, the one that I set as default, is actually way down here. So first thing I'm going to do is I feel like that affects order. It does. See, even though it's default, it's the third one down. That does not feel right to me. So first change I'll make is I'll pick up that whole thing. That actually starts from here. D for delete, but it's also in your copy buffer. P for paste, and I just paste that block of text above the other one. See, it goes Ubuntu, PowerShell, Command Prompt, Azure. So I hit escape to get out of insert mode, colon for command mode, W for write, and Q for quit. I'm going to actually quit out because having made that change, I don't think it'll be instant. Yeah, look at that. It's instant. See how instant that is? It's up there. And I go back into settings. Let's do something even more gloriously instant. This will also go under profile. And because I'm going to be continuing the lines, I have to put a comma, right? Because this is no longer going to be the last command in this little block of name value pairs. And instead, it's going to be these three guys. I'll put the commas in here. Doesn't really matter. That will be the last one, so I won't put the comma there. Copy it. Hit I for insert mode, already was. Use the operating system paste buffer to put those in. And I'll just do a little key smushing to do the lining up. Once I have my vimrc, doing that lining up will be all twinkly and magical. However, for right now, I'm going to do it the long way because my tab indents and everything aren't really set. So what I'm going to do is write that. See that little W down there? That means write. The second I hit enter, that's going to apply that to the settings file. And if everything else I've seen about this environment is true, it will immediately take effect. Get ready for the fonts to get bigger. Bam, right? So you can use Vim on the Linux side in order to edit your preferences for the very terminal you're using to look at Vim on the Linux side. It gets to be meta. Microsoft thinks they did something very creative making VSCode the editor for this, but I say making Vim on Unix, on Linux, is much more clever and satisfying. The color coding is rudimentary, but okay. I'm going to get some more pleasing color coding a little bit later for the JSON files, but that's how you can see you're doing good syntax, right? And let's see. This is still a little bit distracting. So when I start up, I'm going to want my journal, see, my journal actually in a screen like this. And I find that tab and the ability to create new tabs so readily and all this extra widgets and stuff is too distracting. I like full screen. I'm a flow or zone sort of guy. So when last I attempted to do this, I only used this control. You need to use these two controls together. So I'll copy them both. And those are global settings. So as opposed to here in the profile, I'm actually going to go up to where the global stuff is. And this is where I put the last one. See, I put launch mode maximize. That's what makes it start full screen. This is kind of like those, so it'll go in there with them. And same deal as before. You got to put the comma. This is not the last one on the list. It goes on. Even this profiles, even though it's not a key value pair, it's a key value pair of another sort. This indented stuff is actually the value after that colon there. So we need that comma. And then I'll do a little bit of the smushing. Save. Now this won't do it off the bat because that's a startup thing. That's how this looks. So I'll quit, then I'll exit out of here. And then just like I'm starting in the morning, see that Windows terminal? When I do Control-Alt-T on my keyboard, it's the same thing as double clicking that. And we are now in very, very focused mode. We know it's an Ubuntu session that we're in, but we also don't have to look at much else on our screen except for our cursor. And there's my blinking green cursor that I like. And I'll use the same trick that I use for settings in order to edit my profile, because I feel the need to get rid of that hello world. But just the way I type settings now to control the settings for the terminal, I would like to just type profile to change my environment profile variables. So the very commands I'm doing now are the very commands I'm going to be putting into the profile. Now notice it takes two commands. First I have to cd to home. You don't know that you're in home yet. And if you want to know where that directory is, you can do it like that. So I can actually reduce it to being one command instead of a cd. I can just say where the file is. It's in home Ubuntu. So now if I vim what I know to be here, .profile.bash profile, I can make a new line, alias profile equals first that Ubuntu part, but actually we're going to be vimming it. It's vim, and then this is .bash underscore profile. Save, quit, close all the way out, go all the way back in, and you'll now see whenever I want to do something to the profile, all I have to do is type that, get rid of the hello world, save, quit. Oh yeah, it's not quitting out of that, exit. And sometimes you have to close that. Now you go back in here, no more hello world, right? So settings, profile. Pretty neat, right? And this is some of the stuff you start to do in order to, settle in to your Linux command line interface. You get to set up a lot of aliases in your bash profile. Eventually we'll be putting custom commands, a little preview of things to come. One of my favorite locations. If you cd to root, you can start looking at the Linux commands here. I mean, not the Linux commands, but Linux file layout. And there's some Windows stuff in here too. This is not typically stuff you would see on a Linux machine there, but most of these are bin, dev, home, lib, boot, etc, init. These are all fairly typical Linux things. And I'm going to cd into user. And from user, I can cd into local. And from local, I can cd into sbin. It's going to be empty, but it's like binaries, but it's script binaries. And in the same way I'm doing things in my bash profile, you can do things in your sbin and have a whole bunch of custom commands you carry around with you. I keep all my stuff. I keep all this custom stuff in GitHub repos that I could just pull down and drop into place, but then I wouldn't be showing you anything. I'm going to settle into my machine, showing you this stuff and sort of rethinking these things. And so I did everything on my to-do list down to about here. I did not add the Anaconda prompt to the terminal, There's enough involved there that I think I'll break that out into a separate video, in addition to putting my Vim RC onto that machine so that I get all the right color coding and indenting and keyboard shortcuts that I am used to using in my day-to-day workflow. So thanks for joining me, and hope to see you again soon, and don't forget to subscribe.